Namaskar, good evening. You are watching Rajya Sabha Television. I am Smriti Rastogi with News Tonight. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi slams Congress leader Sam Pitroda for his controversial remarks on 1984 riots, says it reflects character and arrogance of grand old party. Amid raging storm, Congress distances itself from Pitroda's comments. Campaigning for the penultimate phase of Lok Sabha elections ends. 59 constituencies across 7 states to go to polls on 12th of May. Union ministers Harshvardhan, Menka Gandhi, Radha Mohan Singh and Narendra Singh Tomar in the fray. Electoral fate of SP Chief Akhilesh Yadav, Digvijay Singh and former Delhi Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit will also be sealed this Sunday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses rallies in Rohtak, Mandi and Hoshiarpur. Congress President Rahul Gandhi and BJP Chief Amit Shah also addresses voters. Priyanka Gandhi canvasses for votes in Siddharth Nagar. BSP Chief Mayawati holds rally in Delhi. And home loans to be cheaper, SBI cuts home loan rates for the second time in a month. Cuts lending rates by 5 basis points across all tenors. And first, all the election news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday led a fresh BJP offensive on the Congress over its leader Sam Pitroda's "so what" remarks on 1984 anti-Sikh riots, saying that it reflected that party's mindset. While campaigning in Haryana's Rohtak, Prime Minister Narendra Modi added these words showed character, mentality and intentions of the opposition party.
हुआ तो हुआ। कल कांग्रेस के सबसे बड़े नेताओं में से एक ने चीख चीख कर 84 के दंगों के बारे में कहा कि 84 का दंगा हुआ तो हुआ। आपको पता है ये नेता कौन है? ये नेता गांधी परिवार के सबसे करीबी है। गांधी परिवार के सारे लोग के साथ हर रोज उनका बैठना उठना है। ये नेता गांधी परिवार के सबसे बड़े राजदार है। ये नेता राजीव गांधी के बहुत अच्छे दोस्त और आज के जो कांग्रेस के नामदार अध्यक्ष हैं उनके वो गुरु है। इन्होंने कल टीवी के सामने साफ साफ बोल दिया, अगर 84 में दंगा हुआ तो हुआ।
Pitroda, a close aide of Rahul Gandhi and Congress leader, on Thursday said, "So what? It happened about the anti-Sikh riots." He made this remark in response to a question on the riots by a reporter in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. And Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also hit out at Sam Pitroda, saying it is a matter of disgrace that the party had no remorse over the Sikh killings and wondered if Rahul Gandhi would oust his guru for the remarks.
I don't think so. This also another lie. बोल दिया ना, आप तो झूठ बोलते ही रहते हैं रोज यार. आज हमारे पे झूठ बोला, कल आप पे झूठ बोला, और आप लोग झूठ प्रमोट करते रहते हैं. अब क्या है 84 का? बात तो करिए, आपने क्या किया 5 साल में, उसकी बात करिए. 84 में हुआ तो हुआ, आपने क्या किया? You were voted to create jobs. You didn't create any jobs. You were voted to create 200 smart cities. आपने वो भी नहीं किया, तो आपने क्या किया? आपने कुछ नहीं किया, इसलिए आप यहाँ लगाते हैं, वहाँ लगाते हैं गप.
Meanwhile, Congress leader Sam Pitroda has apologized for his remarks and said his words were twisted. Pitroda's apology came as the Congress distanced itself from the remarks, saying that Pitroda's remark is not the opinion of the party and advised all its leaders to be careful and sensitive, stating that the Congress had strived to ensure justice for the 1984 riot victims. Congress's spokesperson Randeep Surjewala said the party continued to support the quest for justice and stern punishment for those found guilty in the anti-Sikh riots.
I totally don't accept that statement. जो riots हुई, it is the duty of successive governments to find out किसने करवाई, कैसे की, कौन था इसके पीछे, and this must be found. This जो कत्ल होते हैं, जो लोग मारे जाते हैं, चाहे जितने मर्जी साल निकल जाए, 35 साल हो गए हैं, this has to be found, and there investigations must carry on, and जिन्होंने किया है उनको फिर अदालत के सामने आना पड़ेगा, कानून के सामने.
The statement I made was completely twisted, taken out of context, because my Hindi is not that good. I think in English, I have to translate. What I meant is जो हुआ वो बुरा हुआ. I couldn't translate बुरा in my mind. What I meant is move on. We have other important issues to discuss.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi campaigned for the BJP in Himachal Pradesh, where polling will be held in the last phase on 19th of May. Addressing the gathering, the Prime Minister attacked the opposition Congress for disrespecting the army. Flaying the previous Congress-led UPA government over the one rank, one pension scheme, the Prime Minister said it spent only 500 crore rupees on it and misled retired soldiers. In the same breath, he asserted how his government provided 35,000 crore rupees and implemented the OROP in the real sense.
साथियों, 2016 में आपने देखा कि हमारे वीर सपूतों ने सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक की, तो कांग्रेस के नामदार ने पाकिस्तान के बजाय मुझे गालियां देना शुरू कर दिया. इस साल भी फरवरी में एयर स्ट्राइक के बाद कांग्रेस के नामदार और उनके रागदबारी फिर एक बार मोदी को गाली देने में जुटे हुए हैं.
And Congress President Rahul Gandhi addressed his first poll rally in Chandigarh. In his speech, he claimed that his party's proposed minimum income guarantee scheme, Nyay, will jumpstart the country's economy and accused the Prime Minister of failing to keep his 2014 pre-poll promises. Chandigarh Lok Sabha seat will go to polls on 19th of May. Earlier in the day, he also addressed public rally in Una in Himachal Pradesh.
5 करोड़ परिवारों को जो पैसा जाएगा, हमारी माताएं और बहनों के बैंक अकाउंट में जाएगा. कि जो हमारी बहनें हैं, हमारी माताएं हैं, उनकी लॉन्ग टर्म प्लानिंग होती है. जैसे चंडीगढ़ बनाया गया, प्लानिंग करके बनाया गया. जैसे हमने 72,000 रुपए प्लानिंग करके आपको देने का काम किया, वैसे ही हम चाहते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान की माताएं और बहनें इस 72,000 रुपए के साथ परिवार की फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग करें.
And Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi addressed rally in Bhadoi in Uttar Pradesh. In her speech, she said that Congress will give 72,000 rupees annually to every poor family in its Nyay scheme and promised to work on eradicating poverty from India.
एक ऐसी योजना होनी चाहिए जिससे हर परिवार को, हर गरीब परिवार को सहायता मिले, ताकि गरीबी की दलदल से निकलने की कम से कम उम्मीद रख पाएं। तो जब वित्त मंत्रियों ने ये जांच की तो उन्होंने ये योजना बनाई। इस योजना का नाम है न्याय। न्याय का मतलब है न्यूनतम आय योजना। न्यूनतम आय योजना के तहत 72,000 रुपए सालाना हर गरीब परिवार को सरकार देगी।
And campaigning for the sixth and penultimate phase of the 2019 Lok Sabha election came to an end on Friday evening, polling for which will be held on Sunday. 59 constituencies spread across 7 states will go to polls in this phase on May 12th. Voting will be held in 14 seats in Uttar Pradesh, 10 in Haryana, 8 seats each in Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal, 7 in Delhi and 4 in Jharkhand. Union Minister Menka Gandhi, Dr. Harshvardhan, Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav, Congress leader Digvijay Singh and BJP's Sadhvi Pragyat Singh Thakur are among 968 candidates in the fray in this phase of elections. Electoral fate of Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav and former Delhi Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit will also be sealed this Sunday. And for the latest information on elections, we'll go across to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who is joining us from Motihari in Bihar. Akhilesh, how important is the Purvi Champaran Lok Sabha constituency in these elections, remembering that the constituency has been a bastion of Bharatiya Janata Party, with Union Minister Radha Mohan Singh winning the seat both in 2009 and 2014 Lok Sabha elections?
Yeah, it's a really very important seat for BJP, because Radha Mohan Singh has been sitting MP not for the first time, but he's sitting MP for 5-6 terms, and that makes a seat very important. And you know that in this phase of election, all the 8 seats were with NDA, 7 with BJP and 1 with LJP, and now JDU has also joined the bandwagon, and JDU has got 3 seats. So I think this is a very interesting phase. And as far as East Champaran is concerned, East Champaran has maximum number of candidates. The 22 candidates are fighting election from this constituency. Actually, East Champaran is one of the 2 constituencies from where 22 candidates are fighting. One is East Champaran and another is Vaishali, and both are fighting, 22 candidates are fighting. So East Champaran is important also because, that the rival is, not from one of the major parties. The rival is from RLSP. BJP is contesting against RLSP, and RLSP, you can say that one of the newest party. Upendra Kushwaha was with NDA and now it has joined Mahagathbandhan. So it is the newest party in the Grand Alliance. But given the fact that the choice of candidate is very interesting. The choice of candidate, he is a son of Akhilesh Prasad Singh, who was earlier, who was earlier with RJD, and now he has joined Congress, and now his son is fighting from RLSP ticket. If you go into the caste-wise analysis of this constituency, Akhilesh Prasad Singh, his son, belongs to Bhumihar caste. And that the RJD doesn't gel well with this caste. But still, RJD has given, RLSP has given candidate to this caste. So that shows a new type of combination emerging in Bihar that can prove very, interesting in the upcoming elections, not only for this phase, but for the final phase also, or also for the next assembly election in Bihar. If this
Absolutely,
equations work well.
Thank you so much for joining us and giving us all those details from Bihar. Moving on, the BJP and the Congress are engaged in a war of words over the reports of 1987 trip that Rajiv Gandhi had undertaken with his family. Now, at an election rally in Ramlila Maidan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday had claimed that the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi used the carrier as a personal taxi during a 10-day holiday and his in-laws were with him. And taking a dig at the Congress, Union Minister Arun Jaitley had tweeted, "The Kamdars use India's naval assets to strike at terror. The Namdars use them for personal vacations with family and in-laws." On Thursday, the Congress addressed 3 press conferences to challenge Prime Minister Narendra Modi's allegations, citing statements of 3 former Navy Vice Admirals who claimed that then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was on an official visit to Lakshadweep when he also visited INS Virat, an aircraft carrier. And for this story, we are joined by political analyst Advaita Kala. Thank you so much for speaking to Rajya Sabha Television. Tell us what this entire controversy is all about.
Well, this entire controversy is really about excesses on the personal level by public representatives and even someone who held the highest office in the land. So in a democracy, in the largest democracy in the world, where your power is achieved through the power of the ballot, and that is the people, you are accountable for your actions, for what you use from the public exchequer, for activities that may compromise national security in some way. These are the questions that have arisen out of this revelation. And I might add, I mean, you know, this was not a claim by the Prime Minister. This is something that was reported at the time. It was reported in India Today magazine, the premier and possibly the only news magazine on a pan-India level in 1987. Widely read, as well as in the Indian Express. So there was censure that was raised at that point of time. However, it didn't quite escalate to the point it has today. And that is also revealing of how the public, especially the voting public, because this is election 2019, views these kind of excesses. And there is really no expiry date on how people are going to respond to this.
Naval resources, if we talk about, these are the defense resources which are usually held sacred in any country. Now, what explains this kind of misuse by no less than a Prime Minister?
I think, you know, part of it is also, you know, just the sense of entitlement. And it's part of the running narrative that exists in the present day when it comes to dynastic privilege. I think it feeds entirely into that narrative because this is really what people have started to notice, resent, argue. The media has played a very proactive and activist role when it comes to highlighting these issues with a campaign against VVIP racism. Remember, Rahul Gandhi, being a member of parliament a few years ago, tore the ordinance of the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and came in for a lot of disapproval because, again, this was seen by the public as something that reeked of dynastic privilege. So in a new India that is moving forward, that is much more empowered, much more aware of its rights, these things are going to be taken very seriously and they're going to be censured and they're going to be under scrutiny. And I think that's a very positive sign for any democracy. You know, you hear of these things with despots. For example, Gaddafi, the late Colonel Gaddafi of Libya, I remember very clearly, took a tent when he went to attend the United Nations meeting and set it up in the middle of Manhattan. You know, so these were stories that you heard about despots from around the world. Now suddenly you find yourself confronted with a story like this, where a naval warship, mind you, the premier warship, along with the flotilla, which would be about 5 to 6 other ships, 1,200 people, Navy staff on board INS Vikrant, were for 10 days part of this sort of holiday-making soiree and put to work. I mean, there was a journalist who reported in the present day that he had spoken to some of the people on board that ship, the Navy personnel, and they said that there were regular sorties with helicopters, naval helicopters, carrying refreshments back and forth.
Right.
So I think this is scandalous, and really the fact that it is so
Right,
scandalous
Advita, we are
has
falling
caused this
short
level
of time,
outrage.
so I'll have to interrupt you here. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand that very important development in detail. Moving on. For the 7 Lok Sabha seats in the national capital, the main contest is between the BJP, Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party. This time, around 164 candidates are in the fray. More than 13,000 polling booths have been prepared by the Election Commission and 523 have been identified as critical polling stations. Our correspondent Anu Diwan brings us this detailed report.
दिल्ली चुनावों पर बात करने के लिए हमारे साथ दिल्ली के मुख्य चुनाव अधिकारी डॉक्टर रणबीर सिंह है। सर, चुनावों के लिए क्या कुछ तैयारी हो गई है, कितने पोलिंग स्टेशन बनाए गए हैं और उसमें से कितने क्रिटिकल हैं?
हमारे पास 13,819 पोलिंग बूथ हैं टोटल और ये 2,700 लोकेशंस के ऊपर हैं। क्रिटिकल पोलिंग स्टेशंस हमारे 523 हैं।
सर, इनके ऊपर क्या इंतजाम किए जाएंगे? क्रिटिकल
पोलिंग स्टेशन के ऊपर खास निगरानी रखी जाएगी। खास निगरानी के लिए हम हर एक क्रिटिकल बूथ के ऊपर पैरामिलिट्री फोर्स लगाएंगे और उसके अलावा या तो वहाँ पे सीसीटीवी कैमरा लगाएंगे या वेबकास्टिंग करेंगे या माइक्रो ऑब्जर्वर तैनात करेंगे या वीडियोग्राफी करेंगे। उन पे खास निगरानी रखी जाएगी।
सर, सबसे ज़रूरी होता है कि हर मतदाता जो है पोलिंग बूथ तक पहुँचे, अपना मताधिकार का इस्तेमाल करे। इसके लिए चुनाव आयोग ने अलग अलग कैटेगरी के जो लोग होते हैं, जैसे कहीं दिव्यांगजन होते हैं, 100 साल से ऊपर जो होते हैं, वो हमारे लिए एक उत्साह भी होता है, एक प्रेरणा भी होते हैं जब वो वोट करने आते हैं। लेकिन चुनाव आयोग उनके लिए क्या कुछ तैयारी करके सामने आया है?
नहीं, मुझे ये बताने में बड़ी खुशी हो रही है कि हमने ऐसे वोटर्स के लिए ख़ास इंतज़ाम किए हैं। इस बार एक पहल करी है जो 100 साल से ज़्यादा उम्र के वोटर्स हैं, उनके लिए हमारे ऑफिसर उनके घर जाएंगे। हमारा ऑफिसर उनको जो वो टाइम बताते हैं कि इतने बजे मैं वोट करने के लिए आ सकता हूँ, तो उतने बजे उनके घर जाएंगे, उनको अपने साथ एस्कॉर्ट करके पोलिंग स्टेशन ले जाएंगे और वहाँ पे उनकी प्रायोरिटी वोटिंग कराएंगे, उनको फूलों से सम्मानित करेंगे और फिर आदर सहित उनको वापस घर छोड़ के आएंगे। ये एक पर्सनलाइज सर्विस मैं सभी 100 वर्ष से ज़्यादा उम्र के वोटर्स को देना चाहता हूँ और इसका सभी लाभ उठाएं। और मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है 96 ऐसे वोटर्स हमने आइडेंटिफाई किए हैं दिल्ली में। मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि उनमें से ज़्यादातर इस इलेक्शन में वोट करेंगे। ये हमारे लिए बहुत गर्व की बात होगी। इस बार दिल्ली में हर व्यक्ति वोट डाले, मैं ये चाहता हूँ, ये अपील करता हूँ आपके माध्यम से, और हमारा मतदान इस बार सब रिकॉर्ड तोड़े तो मज़ा आएगा।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हमसे बात करने के लिए। तो ये थे हमारे साथ मुख्य चुनाव अधिकारी। यानी अब बारी है आप लोगों की, अपने मताधिकार का इस्तेमाल करें और अपने इस लोकतंत्र का हिस्सा बने। कैमरा पर्सन प्रशांता के साथ अनु दीवान, राज्यसभा टीवी, दिल्ली।
And some more developments. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu held one-on-one talks with his Vietnamese counterpart on Friday. Both leaders agreed to enhance cooperation in various fields, including defense, infrastructure, science and technology. The Vice President, who is on a 4-day visit to the country, said both the nations have a strong bilateral relationship based on mutual trust, understanding, convergence of views on regional and international issues. Raj Kamal Rao brings us this report.
On the second day of his official visit to Vietnam, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu paid tribute to martyrs at the Monument of National Heroes and Martyrs in Hanoi. Later, he held one-to-one talks with his Vietnamese counterpart Dang Thi Ngoc Tin and discussed a range of issues covering bilateral and multilateral cooperation.
The exchange of high-level visits from both the sides is a clear indication of the commitment of the two countries to further strengthen our comprehensive strategic partnership. India and Vietnam today have a strong bilateral relationship based on mutual trust, understanding, convergence of views on regional and international issues.
During the talks, both leaders reiterated the importance of building a peaceful and prosperous Indo-Pacific region on the basis of respect for national sovereignty and international law.
We covered a wide range of bilateral, multilateral cooperation. We have agreed to strengthen further our bilateral cooperation in defense, security, peaceful use of atomic energy and outer space, science and technology, oil and gas, renewable energy, infrastructure development, agriculture and innovation-based sectors. Our bilateral economic engagement during the last few years have immensely strengthened, and we discussed today means of facilitating our business and industry to harness the growing opportunities in our countries and in the region. Bilateral trade stood at nearly $14 billion last year, having nearly doubled from $7.8 billion 3 years ago. I am confident that we will achieve our bilateral trade target of $15 billion by 2020.
Both leaders also urged the countries concerned to reach consensus on a code of conduct in the South China Sea.
Vice President of India, who is on a 4-day visit to Vietnam, kick-started his second day in Vietnam by paying tributes at the Monument of Heroes and Martyrs. Later, he interacted with the Vice President and also the chairwoman of the National Assembly in Vietnam and conveyed India's commitment to development of Vietnam. He also interacted with delegation-level talks with the Vice President and extended cooperation on science, technology and space. With camera person Junaid, Rajkamal Rao for Rajya Sabha TV from Hanoi, Vietnam.
And Vice President Venkaiah Naidu also met the chairperson of National Assembly of Vietnam later today. Both leaders discussed topics related to mutual interests between India and Vietnam. And State Bank of India on Friday reduced its marginal cost of funds-based lending rate by 5 basis points across all tenors, bringing down the home loan interest rate for its borrowers. With this cut, 1-year MCLR has come down to 8.45% per annum from 8.5%. As a result, interest rates on all loans linked to MCLR will get reduced by 5 basis points with effect from 10th May 2019. This is the second rate cut by the bank in the last 1 month. After the RBI's April monetary policy, the MCLR was reduced by 5 basis points. The Indian Air Force on Friday intercepted an AN-12 aircraft of Georgia after it entered the Indian airspace from Pakistan. As per the news reports, the aircraft deviated from its flight path and entered Indian airspace from an unscheduled point in North Gujarat. It was forced to land at Jaipur airfield by the air defense aircraft of the Indian Air Force. And that's all we have for you in this edition of News Tonight. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.